Hello viewers and welcome to another edition of Business PNG. Coming up, a feature on internet service in Papua New Guinea. We'll have that story a little later, but first, our continued discussions with Treasurer Don Polye. In our last interview, the Treasurer gave an overview of how health, education, law and order and infrastructural services have been faring in the last couple of months. Well, this time we questioned the Minister why there's been poor performance of these key enablers. He also gives some interesting pointers on the government's stand in the agricultural sector.
There will be viewers asking right now, why are these key enablers? And there is nothing probably more important than health or law and order. Why aren't they performing well at this time?
Yes, it's a very important question, I agree. I came into the parliament in 2002. That's when Somare became the prime minister. At that time, the economic conditions in Papua New Guinea was very poor. But after a few years of laying down the basic rules like the fiscal policies, the medium-term development strategies, the debt management strategies as to how we create macroeconomic stability, and then coming up with the right strategies to addressing all those enablers, the growth sectors. And I've seen the economy start to improve. I think we've never performed so well in those sectors is one of policy directives. I think policies have not been targeting very well at those sectors. That's one. Second is an issue of resourcing. We've not appropriately resourced the sectors as they deserved. Thirdly, I believe it's the issue of management. Management, even the little resource that we have had, we've never managed them so well, let alone pumping in more resources. If there's no management, even huge resources can go to waste.
That's right.
May I add, another perspective is, I think is the ideology. Ideology. I think we've been too kind to ourselves, trying to please everybody, making sure we do everything for everyone, especially in agriculture, trying to benefit everyone, dispersing and thinning out the resources we've always had without having that impact. Egalitarian. In the Constitution it talks about we have to pursue egalitarian ways of distributing the country's resources. And I agree that there must be equal distribution. But we must say, yes, equal distribution, the wealth, right. But where is the wealth? The country does have the wealth, but we must create that wealth first. Create it. You cannot just rip out all those resources and the proceeds from the resources and just try to thin it out, feeling sorry for ourselves and trying to share it with everybody, thinning without doing any impact. That's why I think agriculture has seen a decline. So the combinations of those. And also I think law and order has been a very, very strong deterrent. Wherever there's been some services, where there's been some roads, there's been some plantations in agriculture, land owner issues have emerged and have threatened the existence of all those very important economic agriculture projects or programs, and have died away naturally. And I've seen so many such cases throughout Papua New Guinea. In the agriculture sector, we've got to now shift the focus from the traditional way of doing things, like basing a distribution of funds based on a policy such as the National Agricultural Development Plan, and now we should review that to a new plan that looks at a much better creating impacting agriculture industry in Papua New Guinea. Like I welcome programs such as the Britain oil palm. It's a huge oil palm plantation. It's a huge oil palm program that engages all the local people, and they grow at a small scale their own small blocks of oil palm and so forth. But a big operators there, the big investor, giving them the leverage to sell their produce to a market that they've already have, giving them the expertise. And that's a good thing. That's the kind of program that we must go down into.
Yes.
We've got to have an investment vehicle for Papua New Guinea that drives agriculture, like in the Sepik Valley, the east and west Sepik Valleys. You've got a Sepik plain so huge. What are we going to do with it? Shall we select to grow oil palm there? Shall we select to grow cocoa there? Shall we select to raise livestock there? That's a decision that the Only government must make now.
Yes.
What are we going to do with the Markham Valley? Can we turn that into food basket? What we need to do is the government holding direct investments, equity investments for people of Papua New Guinea in partnership with a reputable international agriculture investor to come into this country and just to impact agro industry or impact livestock industry. Our people plus a foreign investor put together by direct government intervention. We can do that, and I'm very interested. I have discussions with various investors. I'm sure the Prime Minister, Peter O'Neill, has also done that. The Deputy Prime Minister has also done that, and the other ministers, national planning. They're working very, very hard to making sure that we realize this working together in that same focus to making sure we've got high impact agriculture business in Papua New Guinea that then stimulates the growth of small, medium-scale enterprises.
Yes.
Because the small-scale and medium enterprises cannot grow on their own. You've got to tie them into a big agri project or a big livestock project. And you see, it stimulates the growth of women in business, youth in business, and small and medium-scale enterprises. And families of Papua New Guineans will have money coming to their pockets. We can't fail. How can we fail? We must now apply the right methods, prudent management, and make sure the agriculture sector in Papua New Guinea must grow. Because for the economy to perform and to sustain, I tell you, we must have agriculture growth.
We must.
Otherwise, you see only 10 years or 15 years of a GDP growth spurred only by the extractive industry, then it's a shame because economy declines again, we will fail to sustain that, and the rest of the world are going to see us and say, man, what a country.
They couldn't manage themselves.
Man, I tell you, Papua New Guineans are intelligent people and we know how to manage ourselves, and this government is going to deliver that, and I'm proud that I want to do that.
Coming up next, discussions surrounding the much talked about free education policy. The free education policy is here, and according to the government, it's here to stay. This move is believed to have lowered the cost of household expenditure in Papua New Guinea. However, issues have surfaced regarding student-to-teacher ratio, the availability of infrastructure to meet growing student sizes, and access to learning resources. Now, let's find out what the Treasurer's point of view is and whether or not these concerns will be factored into the 2014 national budget.
Thank you, Minister. Now, we've discussed some of the key enablers, and I want to come back to education. The free education policy set this country on fire. Everybody was extremely excited. I know that class sizes have just grown, absolutely grown. So the problems that are presenting at the moment, which I'm sure you're aware of, are that the teacher-to-student ratio has just blown out completely. There are problems presenting that schools just aren't capable of really working within this free education policy. What's the Treasurer's or the Treasury Division's standpoint on this? How can these student ratios be looked at, or perhaps the free education policy, does it need to be fine-tuned? What are your thoughts on this?
It's a very important question to ask. The government has introduced free education for basic education for our people, for our children. We have also subsidized the cost of education for higher education as well. We've also provided pocket allowances for students at universities and so forth. Whilst giving our commitment in providing the basic and quality education for our children, we're also tackling another problem, and it is the statistics, to match the statistics that we have to actual schools, number of schools and students on the ground. So these are the other challenge that we've got to sort out. The next challenge we're also addressing at the same time is to upgrading the standards of education in Papua New Guinea to the international standard. We're not just looking at basic education only, but we're looking at the overall education system, the level of education, the quality of education that we're imparting to our children, matching the international standard. So this is one thing we're doing. We're trying to sort out this information disarray, if you like, out so we understand how much money is actually involved in this. So this is what's been happening now. The education minister has given 100,000 kina each from the education funds to those districts to give us the statistics, that real, genuine statistics to the Department of Education. The government use that for budgetary purposes and for planning purposes. We also looking at the higher education level. It's very important because the higher education level standard is one that determines the standard and quality of education that you see being taught at the lower levels of education. It's no good you have the low levels of education, the standards are low, and when I come to reach the higher education at the university level, there's a big gap.
That's right.
But not just that. If the international standard is not matched by our higher education levels, like universities, then even you see the gap is much wider, and even our university students, we're cheating them, but we're not preparing for the modern age. They cannot compete, they cannot become employable. So the higher education level must meet the standards of international school, the job market. What does industry want? All those has got to be there. That is quality, that is international standard, and there's also efficiently being delivered to our children, but does have the facilities as well. So if you ask me the question about the students to teacher ratio, I don't have the full information to give you that answer correctly, because the education system itself is not giving me the exact number. How many students are there? How many classrooms are there? How many teachers are there in the classroom? How many teachers are not there? It's so confusing. So that's why we have taken the strategic approach to engaging in this survey, the school survey, to give us that information. Then that will give me some idea as treasurer of Papua New Guinea in support of Prime Minister and the government to looking at the figures. How much do we really need to provide the facilities for the students? Okay, the teachers are there. How much teachers are we producing from all of these teachers' colleges in Papua New Guinea to match this number of young people? So this is the kind of survey that is being done now, will give us the focus in the real numbers and the statistics to give us a better approach in policy and in budgetary decisions that our government is going to make. So like I was responding to an earlier question, in the middle year, when I give my middle year review of the country's economy and how we have performed as a government, and I will have some idea as to what are the figures, and then I will, through the government, give some ideas to how much we're going to put into infrastructure development in the education, our stationaries, the facilities, science laboratories, and so forth. So this is the kind of thing we're doing now. So just free education alone is not the answer. It is one of the answers, leads us to solving the other puzzles that we have in the whole package.
That was the Treasurer, Don Polye. Up next, we have a story giving an understanding of the provision of internet service in Papua New Guinea. If you've just joined us, you're watching Business PNG. Now, the internet, an international revolutionary tool that's greatly influenced most traditional means of telecommunications, such as telephone, music, film, and television. Newspapers, books, and other print publishing are also adapting to website technology, even businesses. This is an area of greater demand in Papua New Guinea that's transformed the way of doing business here while providing easy and greater access to information. However, the issue of having access to internet is arguable here, as not all can afford this service, and about 80% of our population live in isolated areas, where access to internet is pretty much difficult.
The internet has now become the most reliable business tool in this modern age, enhancing business activities and bringing partners, clients, and global information to one's fingertips. Like any emerging economy, the introduction of internet service has been positive for commercial activities in Papua New Guinea. Businesses operating here are linking up with partners abroad, creating markets for local products and services. Generally, this has been positive on the country's economic growth. However, the geography and imbalanced distribution of basic services like electricity, roads, and basic infrastructure remain an impediment to internet access in most rural areas. The rates and charges for accessing internet service in the country and competition amongst service providers is a shared concern.
What we really want is more people to use internet and to do more business with internet. However, because of the price, we are disadvantaging our own people.
Internet is going to be much more expensive for the small to start-up operator.
The current scenario in the country is such that the cost of internet access varies from one service provider to another and also depends on ownership of infrastructure, whether it be satellite or fiber cable. Noel Mobia, an experienced ICT expert who has been attached with various telecommunications agencies in PNG and the Pacific, says the pricing of internet service in the country is both cheap and expensive.
Yes, it can be expensive. It's because we have a small market right now. The issue is that PNG buys from Australia as the current setting is. Australia is where we start the price of the internet. So if Telecom or Digicel cannot negotiate or can only negotiate a certain pricing when we start, then that pricing becomes the foundation pricing for all other prices. So what happens is this: the company in Australia, say Company A sells to Telecom. Telecom then buys off there. It then has to connect to get that pipe across from Australia to Mosby, and from Mosby to wherever in the country. Now, the cost of all this adds up. So whatever price it buys it at is what it starts with, and wherever it sells is where it ends with.
Mobia says the service may look expensive here, but when compared to the international market, it may be considered reasonably priced. Amongst other stakeholders, one of the major funding partners in several telecommunications projects in the country is the Asian Development Bank. ADB also acknowledges the importance of internet as an engine of economic growth.
This age of globalization is very important to be connected, as we say. So internet services, allow a business and the population at large to have access to information and to do business, to conduct their everyday lives through having connections to the rest of the country and the world. So yes, I personally believe that the internet is very important for everyday life, particularly for business.
Even small-scale retailers share the same opinion.
But if the government can reduce all the prices to very low, then a lot of people, we're not making money, but we're educating the country and making it easy for the business people to do more business on the computer so that they can do more import and we can do more export on the computer. Oh, look at the women and kids. Women can do business, go into business.
Internet was first launched by PNG Post and Telecom in March 1997, following the laying of 2 major undersea or submarine fiber cable landings. Then in May 2011, the National Information and Communications Authority was established, enabling more ICT businesses to purchase licenses to provide internet services in the country. This has brought about competition amongst internet service providers. However, the issue of high cost in internet service remains a concern. NICTA Chief Executive Officer Charles Punaha says all pricing regulation for internet and other telecommunications businesses rests with NICTA.
For ICT services, NICTA has the jurisdiction for setting prices. Our Act provides for general pricing principles and non-discriminatory principles. As you are aware, recently the Minister made a determination to open up the submarine cables. So that means now the pricing for the bandwidth through the cables are now subject to the general pricing principles of the Act.
Currently, internet service is charged by megabytes per second and not by speed, which is currently the only way to determine price marks.
No, the rates can only be charged on the bandwidth, which is megabyte. Yeah, the speed it doesn't come into any equation. It's only the cost is based on the what it costs the operator to provide that megabyte to the customer, not on the speed. The speed, like what we have just witnessed, the launching of the broadband network, that will now allow for more capacity, more faster services. So the speed doesn't come into for the pricing effect.
Competition in internet service provision is tough for small-scale service providers and is dominated by the big players.
Competition's very tough in this internet market now, especially with a couple of larger players dominating the marketplace in PNG.
Don't go away. Our story continues when we come back. Welcome back. Now our story continues. This time, we explore areas of internet rate reduction, potential of schools being major consumers of this service, and the government's intervention to improve basic infrastructure to make this service widely accessible.
The pricing regulator of commodities, Independent Consumer and Competition Commission, says it does not regulate the cost of internet services. This responsibility rests on the hands of NICTA. There's no legislative measure that integrates ICCC with NICTA to standardize the rates and charges of internet service, but the situation is such that internet service providers have the bargaining power in terms of pricing. In March this year, Telecom PNG announced a 70% reduction of wholesale price for internet service providers. This move was to benefit the business community and schools especially. Telecom, which is the major internet gateway service provider and wholesaler, owning most of the telecommunication infrastructure, remains convinced that its quality of service is pretty much cheaper.
Very cheap price. I think it's much more better than all the other ISP.
For PNG to have access to cheaper internet access, the service providers will have to expand their coverage, and this will need government intervention in terms of roads, electricity, and basic infrastructural services. NICTA has recommended that the principal fiber optic connection be made available to all internet service providers for direct sale as broadband products with the aim of opening up the internet market. But Telecom says it needs more one-on-one consultations with NICTA and that at least one more fiber optic cable is needed to meet the country's ICT ambitions. Just recently, the government through Telecom PNG signed an agreement with the second largest ICT solutions company in the world, Huawei Technology, for national broadband network in the country. State Enterprises Minister Ben Micah says the agreement shows the beginning of life-changing opportunities for Papua New Guineans.
Growth in the networks, more people get into the network. It's like when you have a bigger highway, more vehicles, more trucks get onto the highway. So this is what we call the information superhighway. You know, when you have more users on the network, then the operators make their money. You see? And therefore, it is an exciting time now when telecom goes into this major upgrade, you know, that will enable telecom to add more, services to its network that will give competition to the two mobile operators, in the telecommunication industry, and it's good for the people, it's good for the consumers, good for the government, and good for the country.
Telecom Chairman Mahesh Patel says the rates of internet will certainly go down following the broadband network.
We've done a first round of price reduction, which was announced in the last couple of months ago. We are working on recalculating all the costs again. Ideally our goal is to have an unlimited, so a set fee with an unlimited usage. That's the ultimate goal. The issue is we need to get internet access and availability to a lot more people. Because right now, as you know, internet penetration is only about 2% in the country. And with this new technology coming in now, hopefully there'll be more people using it.
He says Telecom is looking at reducing the cost of internet. But to charge users based on speed instead of megabytes is yet to be determined.
You know, the first round of announcements of the restructuring of the pricing, we're looking at probably towards the end of this month. We don't want to announce the pricing unless the technology is ready as well. So, because if people start downloading too much with our current capacity, we'll get congestion. So there'll be disappointment with the customers. So what we're trying to do is fix our technology, fix our capacity, and the pipes are coming in. Pipes on land into Papua New Guinea now, we want to broaden that.
There's concern that the national government has to review its policies on internet service and to draft pricing and regulatory models based on the PNG setting, one that is not duplicated elsewhere.
Our policies in PNG, apart from the PERS policy in 1993, 94 Martin Thompson era, were very PNG focused. After that, we cut and paste policies from overseas. We get foreign consultants to write our policies, and these policies are based on environments of nations that have actually been developed. It's not relevant to PNG. And because they write policies that are so complicated, sometimes you look at those policies, they've never been implemented because it's too advanced for our bureaucrats to understand. It may be for the technical people to follow, but for the bureaucrats, it's a little bit hard. Government should consider it as being a basic right and bring it immediately under the laws on regulatory regulations on pricing. And that comes under ICCC, and in partnership with NICTA, they can both make it work for PNG.
And to reduce the cost of internet service and maximize internet usage, the government has to consider subsidizing internet access for schools in the country. This is due to the fact that schools have huge number of internet users.
That's where the volumes are, schools. Nowhere else do we have so many users than in schools. So we need to start dropping prices to the schools. Government needs to subsidize. At this point in time, it can be affordable if government puts in a subsidy to schools and the schools have internet access. And then we start building the user base, the volumes that I keep talking about for the future. You know, you're looking at a 5-year medium-term stuff.
Papua New Guineans are now faced with the challenge to invest in private internet gateway service providers. This will help increase competition and make internet service accessible and affordable to consumers, more so for the rural population. But the country's harsh geographical terrain is such that makes it quite difficult to bring this service across to most rural settings, and the insufficiency of power supply and telephone lines to enable internet link is an added burden. The positive step taken by government to enhance internet access and reduce service cost, and its continued commitment to upgrade infrastructure, will gradually enable digital economic boom in the years ahead.
And that winds up this edition of Business PNG. To access our programs online, log on to www.mtv.com.pg. Also, remember to send us your feedback via Facebook or email. Until next Tuesday, I'm Festus Maiganap. Bye for now.